Good day to you. Welcome to Teacher M Piano Studio. Today we'll be discussing how to approach Grade 6 Question 2. Grade 6 Question 2 is looking at how to write a choral. So it includes the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. So the first step is to identify the key in the question. With reference to Grade 6 2021 A Question 2, we take a look at the entire question. First, to identify the key, whether is it in major or minor. And in this case, we see that there's a sharp indicated in the figured bass, some on its own, some against the six sharp. It is likely to be in the minor key, okay? In an A natural minor, it shares the same key signature as C major, no sharps, no flats. And we analyze minor key, we can explore the harmonic minor and the melodic minor. In this case, we take a look at the sharpened 7, which gives us a G sharp. And a quick check, we'll be able to see that this sharp coincides with the G sharp that we need in the minor key. So this is in the A minor key. The next step is to write out the notes derived from the figured bass. First, we'll take a look at all the root position chords. The root position chords can be indicated by 5-3 or no figure. So they leave it empty, right? And we write out all the 5-3 against underneath all the notes that does not have a figure. And we notice there are sharps indicated. And when there's a sharp indicated with no figures, it refers to the third from the notes given. Next, we write out the notes so that it's really clear as to which notes we need to double next. So the first one that we see over here, 5-3, which means that this A that is given to us in the bass refers to 1. So the third note from A will be C, and the third note from A is E. So the full chord given over here is A, C, E. The next one we approach in the same manner. This E is given, and there's now a sharp indicated. So the third note from E with a sharp is G sharp, and the fifth given from E is B, and this chord hence is now E, G sharp, B. We do that the same for all the root position chords first. And these are the answers that I've provided. So you match your working against mine to check your answers. The last two chords shows a E, G sharp, B to A, C sharp, E. In this case, this is an effect called tierce di Picardy, which means that the entire piece is in minor and it now ends off in a major key, which gives it a happy ending. Now that we have all the notes for the chords, we are able to derive and understand what the chords are based on the key that we did it in our first step. So A, C, E, when we write out the chords over here, is a chord 1A. Root position chords are chord 1A. And counting from A minor to E, G sharp, B, we have a chord 5. And since we are all discussing the 5-3 position, which means root position chords, we are now all in the A position. We apply that for the rest of the chords that we have. And if you notice, these are all primary chords. Primary chords refers to chords that we often use. In fact, primary chords can be used to harmonize the entire scale. What are the primary chords that we have? Chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5 in any key refers to primary chords. And in order to know which are the notes that we double, since SATB, or what we call choral, has got 4 different groups, and chords only has 3 notes, one of the notes needs to be doubled. In primary chords, or the root position chords, the A position, we double the root. And if it's a secondary chords, like chord 2, chord 3, chord 6, chord 7, we double the third of the chord. So let's take a look at the notes that we need to double for these primary chords that we see over here. I have indicated with a star next to the notes that we need to double for easy reference. So for the first answer over here, A, C, E, chord 1A, we will need to double the root, and the root refers to A. So when we are writing our SATB vertically upwards, later on we'll see that there will be 2 A's, 1 C, and 1 E. And we do that for the rest of the chords, since they are all in root position and they are all primary chords, we double the root. Now we move on to the next step, which is back to step 2 and step 3 with reference to the first inversion chords. First inversion chords are what we call the B version. They are indicated in figure base by a 6 or 6-3. For 6-3 chords, we'll do the same step as how we did for the root position chords. First, by indicating the notes of the chord. So in this case, we see that there's a C over here, and C refers to 1. If you're uncomfortable, you can actually add in a 1 over here so that it's very clear. And 1 is referring to C. So if we count upwards from C to the third of the chord, we'll see that we will have an E. And similarly, for the 6th note from C, we have an A. So the notes now of this chord are C, E, A. We need to reorganize this chord so that it's easy for us to understand what chord is this relative to the key. And in this case, once we rearrange it, it will be the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of the chord in this order, A, C, E. We do that for the same for the rest of the 6-3 chords. One point to note is for this B in bar 4, we can see that there is a sharp next to 6, which means that the 6th of this chord got to be sharpened. When we write it out in this manner, in the same way, B is number 1. And we count the 3rd from B, we get a D. And we count a 6 from B, we get a G. And not forgetting, we need to add a sharp. So rearranging it, we'll now form this chord G sharp, B, D. So in this page, we can see that I have indicated the chords in the original position according to 1, 3, 6. And then the second version is the rearranged version with the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of the chord. Why do we do that? So that it's easy for us to know which are the notes to double. So for first inversion chords, we have to be careful because if it's a primary chord, we double the root. And if it's a secondary chord, we double the third. And in this question, we now see that there are some secondary chords, so we have to double the third of the chord. So let's take a look. For the first chord here is now rearranged as ACE, and we know that this is a 1B. The next chord over here, rearranged version is BDF, and counting from the A minor key, BDF is a B diminished chord, and I write it in the proper manner with this symbol here. It's derived from a flattened third and a flattened fifth from a major chord. And after writing out the chords, we have them with the doubling indicated here. So for the primary chords, we double the root. And this is a secondary chord, chord 2, we double the third. We do it accordingly in the same manner for the rest of the chords. By placing a star next to the notes that we need to double, we're very clear on our working. And these are for the first inversion chords, or indicated by 6-3. So we'll move on to the next step. Back to step 2 and step 3 for second inversion chords, indicated by what we call the C version or the 6/4 version. 6/4 chords needs to be resolved accordingly because it has a very weak, it is a weak chord and it needs to resolve depending whether it's a cadential 6/4, passing 6/4. There's some other 6/4s that we will explore in the other video. In this question, we only have one 6/4 chords and it's indicated by E as a base. When we count 4th up from E, we get an A. We count a 6th up from E, we get a C. And let's rearrange it, and we have ACE. ACE points us to a chord 1, a primary chord, and since this is a second inversion chord, we double the fifth of the note of the chord. So over here, ACE, double the E. It's the fifth of this chord. And there we have the working done. I have summarized all in the next slide. And this is the working to show which notes to double before we start to write in the notes. You may check your answer against mine. Alright, let's move on to step 4. Step 4 will be checking the note range for the various voices. For soprano voice, it's from middle C to high A. Notice that for soprano voice, our stems points upwards. Alto is written also in the treble clef. The note range is from G, middle G, to treble D. And note that for alto voice, both stems points downwards. The tenor voice is written in the bass clef, and both stems points upwards. It's from E to middle A, and from bass range, the stems point downwards, and it's from low F to middle D. Let's take a look at some of the rules for question 2. Soprano and bass can have leaps, but for the alto and tenor voice, it stays relatively monotonous. So it will look somewhat like this in terms of the melodic shape. Soprano, you have your steps, skips, it can have some leaps, and would like to have a melody to it. For alto and tenor voice, we keep it relatively monotonous or the same notes as much as possible. Uh, Try to just have steps, skips. For the bass range, the bass is given for this question, and it usually moves uh, up and down as well. Large intervals of more than an octave is acceptable only between the tenor and bass parts. So let's take a look in this example. For the bass, we have the F and the tenor A. This is more than an octave and is okay for the tenor and bass parts. Let's check the rest of the voices. For tenor to alto, this is from middle A to middle C, and this is third part. And that is okay for the alto and tenor, not more than an octave. And between the soprano and the alto parts, this is from the C to F. So that's fourth part. And between SA, AT, it should not be more than an octave. We avoid overlapping of voices as well. So let's take a look at the two examples that I have for you in this bar. We notice that between the voices, they have their own territory, so they do not overlap. Same thing for the tenor and bass. And of course, do also remember to check between the alto and tenor voices. The alto voice is now at middle C for these two chords. For tenor is A and G. It is not higher than the alto voice, and that is safe. For the second example, let's take a look. The alto voice over here in the middle G range is higher than the soprano voice for the previous chord. So this is what it means by overlapping of voices. The alto voice should not be higher than the soprano voice across the entire melody or the choral that we write. And this happens for all the voices. The next rule looks at the consecutive fifth and eighth. We should avoid them whether they are consecutive or parallel. So we have to check between the soprano and alto, soprano and tenor, soprano and bass, alto and tenor, alto and bass, and the last one between tenor and bass. So using back the same example, we can see that when we compare the alto to the bass parts over here, F to C, this is a fifth part. So we compare in the same voice from the alto to bass, a C to G. This leads us to a fifth part as well. So when we compare alto to bass, alto to bass, they are fifth apart. This is what we mean by parallel fifth. They move in the same direction, and it should not be consecutive fifth apart. And this is not allowed. So we have to change the voices, right? So now let's move on to mu score and see how we can approach this question. Okay, now we are in mu score. Let's take a look at the inputs from the previous slide. So the bass has been all written. However, you can see that for soprano, alto, and tenor, I've included in with the the notes so that it's easy for me to shift the notes around, and I'm not starting the question from the beginning, right? So all sopranos have been written as a treble C right now, alto as middle C, the tenor middle C as well. The bass is as per given from the question. I like to approach this question usually from the 6/4 because this is a very weak chord and it needs to resolve. The fourth of this chord goes to the third, the sixth goes to the fifth. And from this question, from this chord, we can see that we double the E. So the highest note in the bass is A. And ideally, we would like to go higher so that we can have a wider range for the tenor voice. And since we have to double the E, we can have this here. And the next chord has got an E as well. The fourth of this chord from the E, E, F, G, A is a A. So let's see. There you go. And it resolves down to the G sharp. A goes to G sharp. C goes to B. This is a tierce piccati. We'll like to end with the A, and G sharp is a leading note, goes to A as well. So you can see that in this case, for the ending, we have tripled the A, which is totally fine. And remember to add in the C sharp as per indicated in the figure base. So now you can take a look. We have a range of notes given or set from the 6/4. So as the start over here, let's see if we can also start off with an E. We need to double the A. So we have A, E, and since this E is the middle E, we can't go very, very high though. Your tenor has a range from A to G sharp. A to G sharp. And then the alto is pretty limited. It has got the E to A range. So likely we wouldn't start that high. We have a A, C, okay, if we start with an A, A, E, C. Okay, this seems pretty alright. The next one, we can relatively keep it ideally monotonous for alto and tenor. So let's see if we can have this as the same. And let's check if the doubling is right. So we have C, A, E. We need an A somewhere. Right? And we can see that from A to E over here in the same chord, we have the alto to tenor as a consecutive fifth. But this is the same chord, so consecutive fifth here can be exempted, just like how 6/4 to 5/3, when we have consecutive fifth and eighth, it can be exempted as well. right? But from chord to chord, we can't. So let's approach this. The next chord, double E, we have G sharp and B. So we have E. Let's try a B over here. And then since we have E, let's see, G sharp, right? The next chord, B, D, F, double the D. The D is given. If we have the tenor voice relatively say similar, let's see, D, B, D. No, we can't have it that low. Soprano is now getting a little too low now. So let's swap it around. This is more than an octave. We can't do that. Okay, maybe this can go a little higher. So we have a D, D, F, B. Right? So take note that if it's a G sharp here and it goes to F in the soprano voice, we actually have to raise the F sharp to avoid the augmented second, right? Using the melodic minor scale, but because the figure bass is not given as a raised F, so we do not put them side by side. And let's move on to the next one. A, C, E, chord 1B, we double the A, so we already have the C. We can move this to E. So we have C, E, this is more than an octave, that's fine. If we already have C and E, then we have to double the A. Okay, let's try this out. C, oh, C, we can't go to C. So let's see if C to A. A to E. We avoided, there's no consecutive fifth, right? As you move along, you check so that it's easier. Later, we don't have to do massive changes, right? Like A to E, that's fifth apart, so try to avoid that for the next voicing. You check the one before as well. Okay, D, F, A. F is given, and then the nearest voice, if we have this as A, F, A, D, D. This is an octave, we avoid that for the next one. Okay, E, G sharp, B, we have the E, we double the E. So the nearest tenor, avoid big leaps. We have fourth apart here. Try to stay relatively the same. B is quite close. E to B. And then we have a E, maybe to a G sharp. Or we could probably swap as well. Let's see. Augmented fourth. If we go in the same voice, D to G sharp, not very pleasant. Let's try to keep it to this at the moment. We have a G sharp here. Alright, this seems safe. For now, consecutive fifth, just take note, avoid it. ACE, so we have A, C, double A, and we have E. So let's see if this works. ACAE, ACAE. Alright. And now let's take a look at the next chord. We have D, F, A. F is given. We can probably have a D here. D, F, D, A, maybe. D, F, D, A. Okay. And the next chord is a diminished 7, G sharp, B, D. B is given. We can have a D, G sharp, B, D. We double the third. So we have the D, G sharp, B. We can't have this as a B anymore. If we have a G sharp here, G sharp, B, D. Okay, let's see if this works. B, B, D, G sharp. D, B. Oh, we need to double the B. B, G sharp. B, B, G sharp, D. Fifth part. This is a diminished fifth, so that's fine. B to B, an octave, so let's try to avoid an octave over here. A, C, E. A, double A, 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 C, ACE, double A, C, A, octave over here, A, E, A, C, E. This chord should be held. So there's no bass here. I'm going to change the value here. CAAE. Okay, the chords over here has been deleted. So let's recall. This is a chord 1, B, A, C, E, double the A, C, A, E. And because of the dash over here, there's no chord for D. This is a passing note, right? So C, A, E. Let's see if we can bring this a little closer to what we have at 6453. If I have the C, I have the E over here. C, A, then we have this as an A as well. And they share the note, which is pretty fine. All right. So the last step is to check that you have gotten your accidentals in, and this is in A minor key. So we raise the seventh note, except for the last chord here is tierce di piccati. So we have your G sharp or in. Yes. All right. So this is what I have for you for the voicing for soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. As much as possible, we try to keep the alto relatively, between E to A range or D to A range, and the tenor, okay, if you take a look, is from the lowest note is A, the highest note over here is E, right? We could have more answers or different answers uh, for question 2, right? But the main idea is to be able to know the notes that you need to double and try to avoid the overlapping rules, all right? And that sums up question 2. Let's have a listen. Right, when we complete the SATB, or what we call the choral, we have to make sure we check for consecutive fifth and eighth between the voices. So how do we check? There are 6 parallels that we need to check. S and A. So over here, let's take a look. From A to S, we can see that E to C is a 6 apart. And then we check S and T. So T is A, S is C, so that's third apart. Then we check S and B. S and B, B is A, this is a C, So A, B, C. So this is third. The next, we check A and T. This is fifth. And because this is the same chord, the fifth or eighth are allowed. All right, so the fifth apart, A and T. Then we check the A and B, A to E. This is fifth apart. And then the last that we check is the T to B. T to B, this is eighth apart, A to A. That's how we do the checks. 6 rounds of checks across the entire SA, ST, SB, AT, and AB to avoid consecutive fifth and eighth. So when we say consecutive, it means that from a fifth to the fifth between the same voices, they are not allowed. Unless the two exceptions. If they are the same chord, or if they go from a 6-4 to a 5-3. Right? These two exceptions allow for consecutive fifths and eighths. Right? So before submission, please make sure that you erase all your workings and make sure that all the accidentals are written accurately. Okay? So this is the final step. Let's recap. Ensure no parallel fifth and eighth between all the voices. SA, ST, SB, AT, AB, and TB. Check that all notes that needs and accidentals are in place, especially if we are in a minor key. And then erase all workings or chords before your submission. If you have more questions, you can write into me or comment at this link over here. Cheers and have a good day.